All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about pruning, and as you can see, it's kind of an overcast day. It started to drizzle a little bit. Our crews are trained safely to work rain or shine, and they're always tied into the trees, so they always are protected. If they slip, they don't fall out of the trees. People sometimes are concerned about us working in the rain. What I'd like to talk about on this tree, this is a tree that it's a Zelkova elm. It was just recently pruned about 10 minutes ago by our crews, and I want to talk a little bit about the pruning. First of all, if you look at the tree, just take a glance at it. The tree looks totally natural. If you didn't look closely enough, you may not even know that it has been pruned. Sometimes the best compliments we get are, my tree looks great, but I can't even tell it was pruned. That's a really good compliment because it means that we didn't radically alter the structure or compromise the tree in any way. So if you look up here, you can see some of the bigger cuts down below. They're maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. We try to keep our cuts as small as we can whenever we can, unless it's a structurally poor branch or something like that that might fail and it has to be removed. But all the pruning cuts are targeted. Our guys are all trained. They're certified tree workers. And what that means is they've been trained in how and where to make the cuts on a tree and how each cut affects a tree. With every action, there's a reaction, so it's important that the crew understands when they make a cut how the tree is going to respond. So if you look up there are all these cuts. They've been targeted very carefully to what we call the branch collar. And a branch collar is basically the way a branch is formed and held onto a tree. The trunk puts a layer of wood over the branch, and then the branch creates a layer of wood, and it's alternating rings that create this branch collar that holds the branch onto the tree. The branch collar is both trunk wood and branch wood, so you do not want to damage it, because if you damage it, you damage the main stem and it decays down into the stem. So they very carefully target just at the edge of the branch collar so that there's no decay that forms later on in the branch down the road. If you cut it too close, we call that a flush cut. And what that does is it creates decay that runs down inside the trunk. If you cut it too far out, it's a stub cut. And what that does is there's starches in that stub. It feeds the decay pathogens, and they work from the stub and they get in there and they cause decay. So it's very important to know where to make the final cut on a branch. It takes education. It takes an eye to be able to notice what you're doing. And these guys can do it in a split second. They can run through a tree with a handsaw, a sharp handsaw, and make a lot of cuts in a very short period of time, and they target all of them perfectly. So it's really important to understand that in pruning. So you can see, look at these trees, they're still naturally formed. We've gotten roof clearance. We've done thinning all throughout the canopy, but you have to look really, really close to see those cuts because some of them are smaller than your little finger. And it nicely spaces the canopy, gets airflow. It helps limit disease from attacking the tree, and without removing too much food supply, which is the leaves. So here's an excellent example of a properly pruned tree. Okay, a little bit about this one cut here. This is a target pruning cut, and as you can see, it's kind of angles away from the main stem. It's actually almost like 2 leaders. There's a ridge that goes down between the two that's called the branch bark ridge, and you want to cut the top side just above that ridge, and it angles out a little bit because there's a swelling around that base. And when you come back in a couple of years, you'll see a nice oval shape woundwood tissue forming around the edge of that cut. If you were to cut it too close, it'd be an oblong tissue forming, and of course if you cut it too far away, you'll have a stub, and then the woundwood tissue would have a hard time closing over that. So the process of this wound closure is very important by making a proper cut. And you know, if a guy doesn't know how to prune a tree, he could go through and make all sorts of improper cuts, either too close or too far away. The homeowner wouldn't know the difference. This tree would still look good from a distance, but meanwhile, you have all this decay pathogens fighting away at that thing, and a couple of years you may have some big failures because you got decay inside the branch. So it's important to do the target pruning and hit the cuts in the right manner.